There's a new rule in the New Mexico legislature, and it's designed to keep lawmakers' communications away from the public. The Senate solidified support of House Concurrent Resolution number 1 on Wednesday night in the 11 o'clock hour. That would be p.m. House Minority Leader Don Bratton and Speaker of the House Kenny Martinez rolled out the measure just a couple of weeks ago. And it says first that the Legislative Council Service should handle all inspection of public records or IPRA requests. That's okay, that's the process. The controversial part is that the attempts to use a provision of the Constitution to shield lawmakers' communications. They assert authority only as a group, the argument goes, not as individuals. Therefore, the public has no right to see most communications to and from their elected legislators. John, open government groups, journalists, the Attorney General, they all argue against that line. They say the provision in the Constitution we have now has never been interpreted as exempting them. So why do we need this? What's going on here?
Well, I mean, I tend to agree with the legal analysis coming from the Attorney General's office and FOG and other groups that this it's the immunities and privileges provision of the state constitution.
Go ahead and explain that.
Yeah, which basically back in the Revolutionary War times, we used to have the British arresting people when they were going to the Congress. And so we have this provision in the federal constitution and the state constitution that says you can't keep it's tyrannical to detain a legislature on their way to do the people's business. So I tend to agree that this is not applicable to like email. It's, it's really this ancient constitutional doctrine that we've had for 200 years. On the other hand, I think there's a legitimate policy concern about constituency privacy. I think citizens should be able to petition their government and not expect to have their emails or whatever plastered around. So I think—
Is it a function of the culture we're in now that if good qualified citizen that says, I believe this, somebody else can do something else just in the war of ideas here? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I agree with that. It's basically, I'm on the side of transparency too. Yeah. I think most people would agree with that. I think the Speaker of the House and Representative Bratton agrees with that. The problem is, should every communication from a constituent be automatically public? And that may be a question. I tend to agree with the open government folks that we should pass a law that spells that out rather than doing it by a rule so that the legislature can vote on it. It's a legitimate concern. But on the other side of the thing is that people get influenced. You have corporate interests and other types of things communicating with legislators, and that probably needs to have sunshine on it. So that's the debate. It's an interesting debate. We probably need some reform of the law.
Interesting. Tom, I would like you to pick up on that. Representative Bratton was mentioned, and quoting, he sees email as, quote, no different from a conversation I have with another person, that personal emails raise a constitutional issue implicating a right to privacy. Is that what's going on? Is it the same as you and I, meeting on Central Avenue, running into each other, just talking? You decide to unload some beautiful tidbit. I'll be on my bicycle anyway, but you know what I mean?
I'll be right.
Is it the same, or does Representative Bratton have a point here?
Well, and that's in essence what the economic stimulus package is going to be for attorneys now that they are going to fight this court. So congratulations, trial lawyers. Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to is people accessing their legislators.
Sure.
I think those conversations should be off limits. Texting, I'm sure that's going to come up as well. What I think is not
let me
really
make sure I'm clear. Off limits to whom? To who?
Outside, it's a personal conversation, personal communication.
So you would agree that now what about that? There's IPRA protection for that now, isn't there? You can redact stuff now.
Right, you can, but who's the great, orb in the sky that is going to determine what is and isn't? That I think is what really disturbs a lot of folks is that where's that consistency going to be? Why is some communication going to be deemed as, you got to release that, and who's going to say, well, you can't release that? And that I think is what's causing the uncertainty, because the opportunity for consistency really hasn't been established yet.
Lieutenant Governor, the U.S. Supreme Court's made it clear about personal, private. This has gone up the ladder, so to speak, before. It feels like we're tumbling back down a hill for some reason here in New Mexico with this. But I ask again, does Representative Bratton have a point here? Is there something, as John mentioned, certain types of communications that need protection between constituents?
Well, I think they all have a point. I mean, I think there's a lot of could be conceived some hypocrisy around this, people running on transparency and then voting. Sandra Rue, who I worked closely with on the Sunshine Portal, voted for this ruling, this resolution. But, I think at the underbelly of it all is politics. And what people are concerned about is that something that's in an email that was not said appropriately or had some, whether it's a constituent or a legislator in their private emails, gets misused out of context, which happens all the time anyway. Yep. But this is just, I think it's a comment on the technology age we live in and the availability of hacking, getting into, I mean, the governor certainly has had, she's been fighting against release of her own personal emails. If she had to sign this bill, my guess is she would sign a bill.
Sure, exactly. There's been a cloud over this whole thing because of that. It's interesting. Our producer, Matt Grubb, spoke with Representative Don Bratton, previously mentioned, about what's driving this measure.
I'm going to play the role of the cynic here and say that it doesn't matter at all whether or not you're a citizen legislator. You're a legislator.
I understand.
And as such, you're a public official. Therefore, you have power that I don't have. And we should be able to find out not just what decisions you make, but how you make those decisions.
I disagree.
How do you disagree?
Well, I think in order for us to do our job effectively and in order to get good people to serve, you've got to be able to afford people the right of private communications between themselves and others. And we communicate in different ways. You know, is the next request going to be that I have to wear a microphone so that you can monitor every communication that I have? And I think that's where this is headed. And what's going to happen is you're going to shut down our form of government because you're not going to get good people to serve, and you're not going to have open communication between the servants and the people.
Dan, legislators are already protected in the drafting of bills, which in their various forms aren't available until they're introduced. The idea of how lawmakers come to decisions and who they consult with, I mean, should that be public? It doesn't make much sense from one point of view. Do you agree with Representative Bratton on that?
I have no idea what Representative Bratton's saying right there.
Really?
None whatsoever. I mean, I think that, you know, if you're an elected official doing the business, it's got to be public. It's got to be. You know, I think that at the end of the day, you know, the problem I have with this is that we're trying to choose who has to be public and who doesn't. If you're New Mexico FOG, you know, if you believe in transparency, why aren't you transparent? Why aren't your emails open to people? Why aren't your communications open to people?
That's an argument for another day, though. But for our legislators,
no, it's very important here, Gene, because this all ties in. Because I think the reason we're heading in this direction, I believe, is because this is a reactionary from elected officials to respond to gotcha journalism.
Okay.
This is elected officials that are saying, how do we stop this? What I find interesting is that so far the most transparent governor, I think, in our lifetime is Susana Martinez. She's the first one to use state emails. She's the first one to mandate that all of her secretaries use the state emails. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to make her stuff public. We're going to make other people elected public, but now we're going to exempt legislators. I don't think people buy this, and I think it's a bad move.
There's a smell test.
After she had systematically used private, I mean, after she was using Yahoo accounts to do state's business for almost a year, then she changed her stripes on that.
That's not true, but that's okay.
But
stolen. They were stolen.
The thing that I will say is that I agree with Dan on the general idea that the argument that Representative Bratton was making, I think, would apply to any public official. And the idea is we got to have either transparency or not. Right. And clearly in a democratic society, transparency is absolutely critical. So at some point, they're going to have to recognize that this stuff is going to be public. I just think it needs to be done probably through a statutory reform so that we can define all this stuff.
You can't change the law with a rule. I'm not sure. I mean, that in and of itself is problematic. That legislators are up there saying, well, we have a law that we don't like, so let's change the rule to affect the law. I mean, what's next? You want to drive faster from Roswell to Santa Fe, so you change the rule to say legislators can drive 100 whenever they want? I think this is just exactly what people don't want to see. This forces people to have more of a lack of trust for elected officials. I'm absolutely dismayed at the fact that this thing was approved in the Senate with, you know, no Republicans voting against it, and yet all of them answered questionnaires to the Albuquerque Journal that said they're in favor of this kind of stuff. So it's really, really problematic, I think, and I think it casts a shadow on the process up there. Because if you read, the reason I'm saying all this, Gene, and I'll stop, is if you read the law doesn't allow you to just go get my emails. The law says those emails have to have something to do with the business, and we have a custodian. You have a custodian at the state. If I go and ask Lieutenant Governor Denish's emails, I don't get the email between her and her husband about their vacation. There is a person that's charged with saying, let me go through and look at those and redact the information that you're not allowed to get. You have to have some trust in the system. And I think that this is showing that the people, that elected officials don't trust the system, and that's bad.
It's a smell test. On the other side of the break, actor Bryan Cranston talks about leaving Breaking Bad behind, but not New Mexico.